All right, welcome to another Dolphin Computer Service video. Today I'm going to be continuing on from my power supply video of last week, and we're going to specifically talk about the connectors we use in the power supply. So, what you see here on screen is the most common that we use in the power supply. So, let's start off from left to right here. Your most important. This one is your motherboard connector. As you see, we have either a 20 pin or a 24 pin. So some motherboards just use the 20 pin, which is why you see this one separate. But some of them, in fact, most of them use the 24 pin. So it doesn't really matter because let's say you have a power supply that is only the 24 pin, like this doesn't separate. You can buy an adapter that converts the 24 pin into the 20 and your computer will work just fine. So again, this is mainly for the motherboard and all its various power requirements that it needs. So then we move on here to the CPU. Again, this one is usually split. It's a 4+4 design. So you have four. So, example, I had a customer that had a motherboard that took all four of them, that took all eight, correction. So, normally that's reserved for Xeon processors, like servers and stuff, or for people that like to heavily overclock their system and they need all the power requirements they can get. So as you can see here, these pins are not the same. This 4 pin and this 4 pin are not the same. So they can only fit one way and they only fit a specific type of application, so that way the user or the person installing them can't get confused. So next we have our PCIe 6 and 2 pin. So these, the 6 plus 2 pin, and then we have our 8 pin. These are technically the same, which is why you see it split off here for the graphics cards or the peripherals that only need 6 pins of power supply. You just plug in this, and if you need the 8 you can plug in that, or you could just get one dedicated to all 8 pins. Another thing is, I've seen some graphics cards where they use the 4 pin. I believe it was a 750 Ti, if I remember correctly, from EVGA. Don't quote me, I just think that's what it was. They also use one of these. Instead of using a dedicated 6 pin, they only had a 4 pin that you would plug in. So again, the bigger graphics cards usually use these, and sometimes they use multiple of these depending on what graphics card you have and how much energy it requires. So next we have our hard drives, which is the SATA. Most CD drives and hard drives and SSDs, whether it's 2.5, 3.5 inch, use the SATA. This is specifically for power, to power the SATA. And another thing is, we also have a bunch of converters here. I've seen converters that convert this SATA to a 6 pin, or this SATA to an 8 pin, or this SATA to a Molex, which we'll talk about next. And I've also seen adapters that convert Molex to SATA and Molex to all these other things. Again, these are all power deliveries systems for whichever you need, motherboard, PCI. You really don't want to go into much of the converting aspect, because like a SATA really can't provide all the power that an 8-pin PCIe can, and a 4-pin CPU can't provide all the power of the 20 pin. That you really want to limit what you're trying to accomplish here. Most of the adapters that you see anyway are what we call low power, for low power stuff, like if you're plugging in an LED light strip, or you just want to get something else. Another thing I see a lot of these is splitters, where they will give you they'll convert one SATA into 2 SATA drives, or one Molex into 2 Molexes. Again, you don't want to go crazy on those, but the options are there if you really, really, really need it. So then we have Molex. This is what a lot of the older drives, like from the 90s and previously, the older hard drives used. a lot of fans use this, and some accessories also use this. Like in that small form factor HP, it would have used one of these Molexes to power the optional SD card and USB expansion ports. Um, these are daisy chainable, which means you can connect multiple ones to each other. That's usually reserved for the fans. Again, if you have like a computer with a lot of case fans, you would use that to instead of having to have separate Molex connectors, you can connect them all into one and power the fans. The fans don't normally use a lot of power. So, there is a limit though. Usually 3 or 4 is about the limit. You don't want to be plugging in like 10 of them to one. But, that's what the Molex is mainly used for now. And then we have one that is rarely used today. It is a floppy. For those of you that are old enough to remember what the floppy disk is, this is what would have powered that. Again, I've never seen this on any new power supply that you buy anywhere, whether it's Best Buy, Tiger Direct, Amazon. Usually you have to buy a converter for like a Molex or a SATA to a floppy drive. And, again, that's how old this is. Floppy really isn't used anymore, so that's why you never really see it. But these are the common connectors that you see on a power supply. And I hope you learned something today, and thank you all for watching this video.